Welcome to this week's edition of Inter-University Debate. I'm so excited to have Uganda Pentecostal University today. I'm your host, I'm Mikayi Gender Fancy. I'm an advocate, I'm a lecturer and a tax consultant. With me today, I have students of Uganda Pentecostal University who are going to hold their internal debates today. So we are at the stage of quarterfinals. We, first of all, would like to congratulate Uganda Pentecostal University for making it to the quarterfinals. And that makes them hold their internal universities today. So congratulations, Uganda Pentecostal University. Last week, we had Maurene University that also qualified for the quarterfinals. We also congratulate them. There are also other universities that made it to the quarterfinals. We have Kabale University, IUIU, Maurene University Business School, Kampala International University. We have Nkumba University, UCU, Cavendish University, and Busitema University. They all made it to the quarterfinals. And every week, we will hold their internal debates, and they will meet in their groups to battle each other in inter-university debate during the quarterfinals. And we will see which university makes it to the semifinals. Turning to today's debate, our topic today is digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth? It's a very, very interesting topic. Everywhere in the country, lately, we are talking about issues of technology. Worldwide as well, technology, we are talking about new innovations. People are coming up with innovation. New technologies are emerging every day. Are these being protected by the digital rights? How about issues of climate justice? Our panelists for today are going to help us unpack this topic, and they will debate it for us. Now, I would like to introduce the debaters for today without wasting time. Let me start with the first panelist, who is Katushabe Nawume. Katushabe Nawume, you're welcome to reintroduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone, to our viewers. I'm Nawume Katushabe, panelist of today, in this very evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nawume, for that introduction. Kindly mention your course when introducing yourself. Our second panelist for today is called Mikayi Maurene. Maurene, you're welcome to reintroduce yourself.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. I'm Mikayi Maurene from Uganda Pentecostal University. I'm pursuing my bachelor's in laws. I'm in year 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maurene. We are happy to have you for today's debate. Our third panelist for today's debate is called Kasoke Chris. Chris, you're welcome to introduce yourself. Okay, we'll be having Chris in a bit. Our fourth panelist is the gentleman who led Uganda Pentecostal University to qualify for the quarterfinals. He represented Uganda Pentecostal University during the inter-university debates, and that is Baluku Sam. Baluku Sam will be joining us in a bit. And when he joins us, we will welcome him to reintroduce himself. Now, I would like to kickstart with the debate for today. As I mentioned earlier, our topic for today is digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth in all this is what we are interested in. Before we go into the issues in today's debate, we would like to start with the introduction to this topic. I'll welcome the first panelist, and that is Katushabe Nawume, to give us an introduction to today's topic. And Nawume, in your introduction, kindly define for us what you understand by digital rights. Nawume, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. In this very evening, we are we are discussing about the digital rights, emerging technology, and climate justice. In this era, there were emerging technology refers to technologies that are developing or are expected to be available within the next 5 years. These technologies are in most cases of businesses, science, agriculture, and education. And we do believe that with these emerging technologies, they're able to help in the high rate of production in both areas of income generation. I think that's how I can describe emerging technologies. Then digital rights, these are the rights that allow individuals or citizens of a certain country to access or create public digital medias, computers. In
Now,
short,
actually restrict your definition to what you understand by digital rights.
Digital rights, these are the legal rights that allow individuals to access and use the internet. Such rights may include like the digital media rights, computer and telecommunication networks. Then from there, we go to climate justice, which I also understand as the fair treatment of all people.
Nawume, like I said, your discussion, please restrict digital rights only.
Oh, thank you very much. I get you now. Digital rights, as I had said before, these are the rights that allow individuals to use and access the internet. The ways that people use the internet in form of digital media. Some people use computers, others telecommunication networks to access information all over the world. I don't know if I can continue from here or if it was a bit only introduction.
Okay, we'll have you back at a later time to have a discussion into digital rights and the role of the youth. But let me bring Maurene into the discussion at this point. Maurene, you have had the definition of digital rights from Nawume. I would like to also give you an opportunity to give us introduction to today's topic. And in your introduction, please define what you understand by emerging technologies.
Thank you very much. And I thank Nawume for the definition she has brought out. The emerging technologies, by my own understanding, I see it as a technology or like technology that we use, something like the internet. Then how useful are we using them, like the internet, let's say the media, the computers and other electronic devices and other telecommunication networks.
Okay, we will have you later to have a discussion on that. Let me welcome Kasoke Chris into the discussion. So Chris, we have had a definition from Nawume, who clearly defined for us what digital rights mean, which in summary, she told us that those are rights to use the internet, and she gave examples. We also had a definition of emerging technologies from Maurene, and we'd like to also get an introduction to today's topic from you and your perspective on what you understand by climate justice. So Chris, you have the floor. Okay, as Chris prepares and gets ready, let me have Baluku Sam. Earlier, I mentioned that he will be joining us at a later time. So let me start by introducing him. Baluku Sam is from Uganda Pentecostal University, and he is the gentleman that sat on the panel and represented Uganda Pentecostal University, where Uganda Pentecostal University emerged as the best and qualified for the quarterfinals. Baluku Sam, you're welcome to today's discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Fassi. I'm so sorry for joining in late. I had issues with my network. But briefly, climate justice is a concept that addresses the just division, fair sharing, and equitable distribution of the benefits and burdens of climate change and responsibilities to deal with climate change. So recognizing the climate crisis as a social and political problem, different communities feel the effects of the climate crisis differently. For example, the people in Kasese will not feel that crisis as the same people in Vududa. Whereas Kasese is affected by floods and maybe drought, the problem in Vududa is possibly landslides and some other things. It differs from now the problem of Karamoja and the other places. However, as we address the issue of climate justice, we address it concurrently, and not only looking at the reduction of emissions, but also look at creating a fairer and more just world in the process. So in this sense, the issues to do with climate change, they upset everyone. They upset every human being in countless ways, because no country and no society is immune. As in, climate change affects every individual, it affects the whole world, regardless of our ethnicities, tribe, race, and some sort of the kind. So that is some brief introduction I can give about climate change justice. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. We will surely have you back at a later stage for a further discussion into climate justice. Now, let me bring Chris into the discussion. So Chris, earlier on, we listened to the definition of these key terms in our motion. We had the definition of digital rights, emerging technologies, and some just defined for us climate justice. Now, as you give us your introduction to today's topic, I would like you to look at the status quo of the three in Uganda today. What is the status of digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice in Uganda? You have the floor, Chris.
Thank you, the moderator. I'm very sorry. I first apologize. My network has a problem, and right now even I'm still moving up and down looking for a network. It's having a problem. So I'm trying to differentiate on this issue of digital rights, emerging technology, and climate justice. First of all, I'll first take on the topic of climate justice. This is linked with the human rights and development to achieve human-centered approach, safeguarding the rights of most vulnerable people and sharing the burdens and benefits of the climate and its impact equitably and fairly. So on the issue of digital rights, here also I submit on the just freedoms of expression that allows people to access, use, create, and publish digital media or all other electronic devices. So on another side of emerging technology, I also, these are just developing issues of social medias, for example, gadgets, phones, computers, that are at least being impounded by the emerging technology that we are seeing in Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for that. Now, I would like us to go into the discussion, and I would like to probe a little deeper into today's topic. I will start right from Nawume, who is our first panelist for today. So Nawume, our topic being digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice, what is the role of the youth? I would like to pick out one aspect of the topic, and that is digital rights that you earlier on defined. So what is the legal framework right now? Because we understand, as you even defined earlier on, you said those are the right to use the internet. That's in your definition. So what is the legal framework in Uganda?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, once again. The question is the legal formula of the digital rights in Uganda. I would say like the digital rights in Uganda, or the formula, is still lacking, because in some instances, however much I don't despise the fact that the digital rights, it's a growing on a gradual process. We hope for perfection in some time. As we see, there are some restrictions which are at times meaningless, which regulate people from using the media, which I see in a legal way that it is not right, because people should be accessing the internet from all corners of the world. We take an instance, especially during the elections in our country, Uganda. In most cases, you find that the internet is cut down, and of which people expect to get information in the outcomes of the election things. So I would say there is still lacking for legal rights in Uganda, which I say that the youth can advocate for, and we get a chance to help everyone, people, despite of where they come from or their age or what, they access the internet. That's what I can submit.
Okay, thank you so much, Nawume, for that. Let me jump the queue a little bit and bring Sam into the discussion. So Sam, if I remember clearly well, is that you're a law student at Uganda Pentecostal University. So what are the different laws in Uganda that govern issues of digital rights?
Thank you so much, Madam Fassi. We have the Computer Misuse Act. Of course, it governs the digital rights. For example, when it comes to cyberbullying and information that is immoral in nature, we have the Computer Misuse Act that governs that.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam, for that. Now, moving to Mikayi and bringing her into the discussion. So Mikayi, we have listened to the legal framework, and from Nawume, she said that right now there are restrictions into digital rights in Uganda. And according to her, is that these restrictions should not be allowed. Do you agree with Nawume on this topic, or you think that there is need to restrict digital rights?
At some point, I will agree that there must not be some restriction. Now, like, take an example where Nawume said in times of elections. In times of election, we are supposed to be having digital free, whereby the internets are supposed to be free to know where, how did the election go. But when it comes to that time, we see that our internet is slowed down, or it is turned down, by which this one brings out the confusion in the country. And another thing I would say, this digital is supposed to be freed by let everyone access it at their own time and in their own like free time when they want to access it, not putting limitations, because if they put limitations, that means they are like, for example, it is overruled. Like even when you have put your own data, which they are even going to chop like 50% or 90%, but they still put restriction. That one is not allowed. And on another instance, I say it is allowed. Now take an example of these people who send porns like on the internet. So when it comes to that instance, I think it must be restricted, because if they don't restrict it, people are going to misuse it. They are not going to be sending what is necessary. Yet internet is supposed to be used properly. It is supposed to be used very well, and everyone must enjoy it. But sometimes if it is not restricted, it is going to do what? It is going to make people run mad. Some like some destroy people's right by sending pics that are not supposed to be sent. Now, for example, take this pic that is trending for the girl of Gulu. Nga, he's having some porn. That one, it is now misused. But if it was restricted, people would not be sending such things on the internet. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Maureen. Let me bring Chris into the discussion. Chris, this is something quite interesting. Nawume and Maureen agree that they agree with each other that there should be restrictions into digital rights. My question to you is, do you agree with them? And according to you, if you do, what restrictions do you think should be brought into digital rights?
Thank you, the moderator. Yes, I agree with those two ladies, what they have submitted. You know, with digital rights, even the Constitution itself is governing those rights. We must enjoy our rights responsibly and with reasonable minds. There is no need why you should violate the rights of the people. No. So I agree with the submission of Mikayi and Maurene, because digital rights have its own key factors that are governing them. For example, the right to access and use computers, the right to access and use digital contents, the right to create and share digital media, the right to express your ideas and opinions freely. Here I mean, for example, if there is no restrictions on the digital rights, there will be a lot of issues of these computer. For example, recently I saw people posting the information that the President Museveni have died, such kind of issues. And those people who posted that post, they were being placed under the laws, implying that if there is no restriction on the digital rights, they could be in a way exploiting badly people's rights. For example, any right that is there, you must utilize it in a good manner, not in a bad manner. So here I mean, the issue of restriction on the digital rights must be exercised and must be oppressed. It shouldn't be exercised by every person. No, it should be exercised in a good manner, such that it should be productive. We should know its role, so that every information that we get on the issue of digital rights should be well done and it should be well moderated. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Chris. The three of you seems to say that digital rights should be restricted. Let me move back to Nawume. So Nawume, in your discussion, you said there is need to restrict digital rights, and you actually started by defining what digital rights are. And my question to you is that, don't you think putting restrictions on digital rights will curtail innovation?
Once again, thank you so much. Yes, like too much of anything, I may say, may become bad, but if these digital rights are over restricted, it will curtail innovation, because people won't be exposed to new ideas from various people, because since the access to such information via different medias helps us to get new ideas from different people. They train via phones how to produce some products, how to make some goods, but again, when the digital rights are not restricted, some people tend to misuse the internet. For instance, some come out, like politicians, they come out to blackmail or even abuse their fellows. You see that, that is a misuse. But if a digital right or access to internet is rightly used as it is supposed to be, I would say there shouldn't be restrictions on it, as it will curtail innovations. Because if people don't even freely interact with other people for different ideas, I continue with that, because that is, we get ideas from one another that will help us to innovate new things. That's what I can submit.
Okay, thank you so much, Nawume. Let me move back to Sam, the gentleman that led Uganda Pentecostal University into the quarterfinals. So Sam, we are talking about digital rights, and my question to you is, to what extent are the youth using their digital rights to innovate?
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Fassi. Uganda has the youngest population in Africa. We all know that 80% of Uganda's population are young people below the age of 35 years. And it means, by the statistics we have, over 10 million Ugandans access internet, meaning internet in Uganda is basically used by the young people. And when we look at the emerging technologies that have proliferated all aspects of human life, these technologies have gone far from education to health to business and finally entertainment. And given the unique position of the ICTs in the current knowledge-based society, internet has become a pivotal tool in the enjoyment of human rights. However, you realize that in the recent concluded 2021 elections, most human rights violations were recorded and they were spread on internet. And when government realized that they were being exposed, we saw internet being cut off during the elections. And I'll also give you an example. In 2018, during the OTT tax establishment, you saw when protests came out, led by one Senator Robert Chagulanyi, when he came out to fight against the OTT that was established, and many others, and later on which was dropped. However, when you look at the status quo, young people basically the ones pushing, are the ones who are on social media currently. We also look at education institutions. They are adopting to the use of internet through conducting Zoom classes. Even meetings of different organizations, they've also adopted the digital kind of innovation. However, currently, as I talk now, there are no clearer laws set to address some of the digital rights that are being violated. For example, when you look at the cyberbullying, when you look at hacking, amongst others. So government is trying hard now to put some of these laws in place because of the recent incidences that happened. You remember one Rukirabaseja who was badly tortured. Instead of being prosecuted to the courts of law, we see that now in trying to curb or to create sanity in as far as the digital rights are concerned, now you see intimidations coming in, you see threats coming in, and arrests of people who try to push for these digital rights. However, we also know that internet provides also access to information, because Article 36 of the Constitution stipulates that minorities have a right to participate in decision-making processes, and their views and interests shall be taken into account in the making of national plans and programs. And when we go to Article 38, we look at civic rights and activities, close to where every Ugandan has a right to participate in the peaceful activities that influence policies of government through civic organizations. And Article 29, clause 1, paragraph A, it also says that every person shall have a right to freedom of speech and expression, which shall include freedom of press and media. So basically, when we look at the status quo, media, digital rights are embodied in our constitution, and every Ugandan has that right to express him or herself through the media and through the press. However, like the challenges I've cited, that most of the times when Ugandans are trying to express themselves, then you see intimidations coming in, you find arrests coming in, and you find that most of the times, even before the investigations are done, the arrests and the torture come first before investigations, and it has ideally caused a lot of issues in this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sam. I would like to bring back Maureen into the discussion. So, Maureen, how important is it to protect digital rights?
Thank you so much. The importance of protecting the digital rights, it will reduce this conmen from conning people, because we have seen most of the conmen do it through internet. If they put restriction, I think it will reduce. And another thing, it is important to protect it because people will not be sending stupid things on internet. Now they will not be sending, like, take an example, these people who send naked pics on the internet. I think they will stop to be sending them on internet because it is restricted. And another thing, if restrictions are put there, I think there will be enough security. Let me say this, enough security will be there, and it will actually be enjoyable by everyone. Because take an example now, when you see like internet has no restriction, the only restriction that is there is on data thing, like you put data, they chop, that one people are getting used to it. But if they say you put a phone on internet, you pay for it, I think, or you account for it, I think this can stop and people can start really using it in their limits and in their right, like the way it is supposed to be used. And even on time, like on time of elections, let's say if it is restricted, I think it can also help us to also stop the chaos that is always there during the election time. Thank you so much. That is my submission about it.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Let's move to emerging technologies. We have talked about technology and the youth are innovating, people are innovating in the country. That is what people claim on the internet. Now, bringing Chris into the discussion, my question to you, Chris, is very, very direct. What technologies have lately emerged in Uganda from the youth specifically?
Thank you, the moderator. That technology that have been emerging in Uganda, most especially to the youth, they're almost like 5 to 7 that have already noted in my mind. One, energy of the technology one that I'm with local materials. In most cases, we have many technologies that have been developed from local printed materials. This is almost being favored in most Ugandans. Many Ugandans are using them, for example, in the local materials like sand soil, clay soil, and this almost increases the developments of houses. For example, I'm seeing many houses in local villages are being printed via those materials that are almost are being developed by imagining technologies. Also, I'm seeing ammonia goes green. Also, it is another technology. Here, I mean, this is being favored in most cases in crops. Crops that are being grown in Uganda are being fertilized by the ammonia and goes crops. I'm seeing this have increased the yield. The crops have been well productive. The fertilizers have been well spread through that ammonia goes green. I'm seeing in most cases, this ammonia goes green, it almost fixes nitrogen bacteria in the soil, such that these crops are being well monitored and are well productive. The productivity of Uganda, I'm seeing it is now running almost 80% due to the imagining technology that are being brought back purposely in farming, also in farming and agricultural sectors. Also, I'm seeing another emerging technology is the fertilizers that have been brought by most Ugandans. Fertilizers have been empowered. I'm seeing crops. Today, the world uses almost 110 fertilizers to improve crop production annually. Here, I mean, the high rate of the crops that are being produced by the this imagining technology. It is so-called nitrogen fertilizers. It also fixes nitrogen bacteria in the soil. Also, I'm seeing the decomposition rises. Here, it is almost favored the carbon dioxide gas in the atmosphere. It's also favored the happening of earthquakes to reduce. This one retains water in the soil, and it is happening in the aspects of the daily life. I'm seeing the plants that are being grown and are being monitored by the decomposition rises. Also, I'm seeing that the imagining technology has empowered the development in both education sectors, health sectors, agricultural sectors, environment, and infrastructure. And almost that's why we are accessing these items, because the imagining technology is now rising on the high rate. It is on the progressing. It is almost showing that indeed the world is changing and the world is on highly well monitored. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for that. Bringing Nawume back into the discussion, Nawume, we have listened to some of the examples of technologies that have emerged in Uganda from Chris. And my question to you is, would you sit and say that Ugandan youth are reaching their full potential when it comes to coming up with new technologies? My question to you is, would you sit and say that Ugandan youth are reaching their full potential when it comes to coming up with new technologies?
Thank you once again very much. Yes, I would say the youths are coming up with the following reasons. As we see as he gave different areas of the emerging technologies, we see that there are very many youths who have started up some businesses, and they've used emerging technologies like the use of Google, let's say. They're using Google to advertise for their own goods, and it has helped them to get more customers all over the world. Like an instance of people with boutiques around big cities do advertise the goods via Google, WhatsApp, or what, and it has helped them to grow their business because people just order for things which is done online, and that is an emerging technology, and it has helped the youth to develop, in short. And when you see, like, in the sector of education, and of which in our country mostly it's engaged in by the youth, there is use of Zoom classes that are being engaged in of recent. They also help the youth to get their education from distant places, like especially the university students, those who are even outside the country. They may register in a certain school and still attain their education. Then when it comes to farming, some of the youths have also engaged in farming, and it is through these very emerging technologies in the sector of agriculture that they sit down and search for ways on how to increase their produce. Some have even adopted like the use of tractors that help to till a very big plot of land, and they're able to get a higher yield. That's what I would submit on that.
Okay, thank you, Nawume, for that. Moving to Sam. So Sam, do you agree with Nawume that the youth in Uganda are coming up new technologies, and this has made them hit their full potential?
Oh yes, I would agree that currently the youths are becoming innovative, given the status quo. You realize most students given the current curriculum that is trying to encourage more science and vocational subjects in schools, you'll find that at least currently most young people are utilizing their potential. However, you realize that our educational system needs a lot of, it needs to be looked into because it is more theoretical. And Uganda being being that country that has the youngest population, young people are coming up with new innovations, and I would ideally concur with Nawume. However, we still have limited civic education. We still have we still have challenges with our education. We also have issues with operational mistakes, especially with enforcement of the police while handling some of these new technologies that are coming in. Most especially issues to do with
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think you was trying to come up with some of the gaps and challenges when it comes to emerging technologies, especially among the youth. Okay, let me move to Maurene. So, Maurene, we are still talking about emerging technologies and about the youth. And I would like you to pick right from where Sam stopped. What are some of the gaps or challenges when it comes to emerging technologies in this country? And specifically today we are discussing about the youth. So what are some of the challenges that the youth face when it comes to coming up with new technologies?
Thank you so much. I see the most challenge that the youths are facing with emerging technology is that things are becoming too expensive, and some youths have nowhere to start from, like in terms of buying or getting involved. And this has led to the hindrance of them not achieving their goals. Another thing, the youths don't know how to use these emerging technologies, most of them. Now, for example, these girls or boys in the village, you will not introduce your technology to their community or to their area, and you say that they will buy the idea just because they don't know any idea about this technology. And this is now leading to the hindrance of their development. Like farming wise. And another thing, the problem they are facing, some of them are not really interested because they are not exposed. As long as you're not exposed, you'll see something as for other people. Let me say, for example, you're taking it in the village and people in town, they know it. Those villagers will just tell you, those are things of town people. For us, we shall not manage them. Some of them they will even start telling you, now they have brought now, for example, robots. They don't want us to get jobs. They have brought this. They don't want us to develop. They are now reducing jobs. So this one will lead them to be like, it will make them demoralized, and they will not really get what they do, what they want. And another thing, I think I'll add on later. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Maureen, for that. So moving to Chris. So Chris, how do we address some of those challenges that the youth are facing when it comes to coming up with new technologies, so that as a county, we are able to fully engage our youth and make sure that they are able to innovate freely and come up with technologies that can help this county?
Yes, thank you, moderator. You know, these challenges are just technical innovations that represents progressive innovation within the field for competitive advantage. So the challenge that I'm just seeing that the youth faces, one, that tax imposed on them when they are trying to put on the emerging technology. You know, nowadays in Uganda, when you see that something's coming, then you find that the government is putting on high tax that almost can hinder the youth from doing such a kind of progressive technology. Another thing is too expensive to meet the materials to use in trying to exercise or implementing the imagining technology. Materials to use are too expensive. Find that we the youth, we are still poor, we cannot even afford what to use on such a kind of technologies. Find that we are still backward such a kind of imagining technologies. Also, another thing
Okay, let me have Sam back so that Sam, you have 2 minutes to conclude on the points you were making earlier.
Thank you so much, Fasi. I was still saying that the biggest challenge we have is that we have unfavorable national legal policy framework, and then also have the ignorance of the policy implementers. And you'll find that the policy implementers, amongst the issues stopping the young people from enjoying progressing, some of the implementers that these new changes, because you and I know that science propels the economy, you know that science propels employment, it gives employment opportunities to the young people. When we talk of these emerging technologies, we do not only look at artificial intelligence, we go ahead to look at machine learning, look at the internet, we look at dominating the information technology landscape, which also enables digital transformation. More so, we also need to look at building more on the existing knowledge about these emerging technologies. We also, in as far as implementing these emerging technologies, also need to investigate some factors that are hindering some of these new developments, and more so look at how best we can attain recommendations for policy formulation, and also review some of these emerging new technologies. For example, recently there was an app created by a Mikayi student. This student had generated an app whereby young people around Makerere, UCU, were using this app to sell off their bodies, for example. So it again goes back now to the policy implementers and government that to put a lot of measures in as far as controlling these new emerging technologies. Yes, these apps are okay, they are good, but then the young people are using them in another way, and it is also causing a lot of immorality, or what I would call moral decay. So ideally, we have to look into the policy that with some of these challenges that come along with the emerging technologies. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam, for that. So let us shift and talk about climate justice. We have seen the UN talk about this, the entire world talk about this, as well as in our own country, we have been talking about issues around climate justice. And with this, let me start right away with Nawume. So Nawume, we are talking about climate justice, and earlier on, it was defined for us by Sam. So my question to you is, where are we at right now as a country in terms of climate justice?
Thank you very much, our moderator today. With reference to climate justice, in Uganda, it is still lacking because it is the fair treatment and not discriminating all groups of people from fighting for a good climate, because climate changes have bad impacts on our environment. But in Uganda, as we see of now, we are really in a lacking stage. There is something very big missing, because as we see in most areas, people are still deforesting the forests. As we expect, those are the very sources that would be helping us for rain formation and whatnot. Even in some areas like Bududa, as earlier given as an example, we see the mudslides. However much some of us we may not be even know what is causing such mudslides, but that is a climate change. That is like a punishment from nature. That is a punishment from nature, which shows that we are still lacking something. We even still see instances of floods, for like the recent in Toroko and Kasese, the Nyamwamba River, floods that are affecting people's lives. That is also a sign that the climate justice is not yet attained in our own country. Actually, people are still also encroaching on swamps, and those are the very things or resources that would be protecting, so that we avoid the climate change effects that are on a higher rank in our country, Uganda. That's what I submit.
Thank you so much, Nawume, for that. Moving to Sam, and Sam, as I bring you back into this discussion of climate justice. So several times in this country, we have seen the country face a challenge on whether to decide on conserving the environment or to promote development by giving up sometimes wetlands, sometimes forests for industrialization. So my question to you is that, which choice do you think we should make as a country when faced with such a challenge? Should we go for conserving the environment, or we give out our forests, our wetlands to promote industrialization and development? So over to you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Madam Fancy. I want us to know that the decisions we make today will impact generations to come. So it is always critical if we try to get everything right. You know, yes, much as we know, yes, recently government has been giving out forests to investors. You find their big men in government or rich men taking up swamps and they're constructing and doing this and that. But we believe that we are burdening the generation that is ahead of us. Because as I speak now, by the way, Africa generates less than 4% of the world's carbon footprint. And actually it bears very little blame for climate change. That's what you and I know. However, again, Africa it suffers now the effects of damage of the damage of these issues to do with climate injustice in a way of floods, drought, and some plagues, because we share the same skies. We share the same skies, and much as Africa generates less than 4% of the world's carbon footprint, it goes ahead to suffer most of the effects. However, it goes back to the policy makers and the implementation. For example, we have industries that produce carbon emissions that destroy the environment. However, you find that these industries or factories are established by the statutory law, for example. They have the statutory authority that is governing them. So you find that much as would maybe perhaps sue for nuisance and what, come up as climate change justice agents, something of the kind. But you find that these industries are established by the statutory law and they are licensed to do that, and there's no way you can go against that. So basically, we should, as government or as Uganda, we should look at increasing energy access. We also see how we can create jobs and also address the issue and also keep the carbon emissions very low. Because if we don't come up with policies or with implementations, we are likely to face an uncertain future that is impacted by changing climate and pandemics. And yet we have a unique opportunity to get it right if we acted now. So sincerely speaking, I would advocate for climate justice because it is simply a way of adopting the burdens that are brought about by climate change. So if we all come together to address some of these issues, address these burdens that are brought about by climate change, ideally through running a strong advocacy and campaigns to influence government, I think most strong laws would be put in place. But currently, it goes back to the policymakers, the likes of the National Environment Management Authority. We have the National Forestry Authority and amongst others. So they only need to strengthen their laws, because even during the COVID-19, during the lockdown, most people were using this chance to encroach on some of these forests. People were encroaching on these swamps during the COVID-19. And we all know that most people left the city back to their villages. And we know there was a lot of deforestation, for example, as people were trying hard to find means of survival. People were cutting down trees to sell firewood. Most teachers were not teaching. And I think the environment was also affected, amongst others. Otherwise, that is what I would suggest. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. So moving to Maurene. So Maurene, we have two dilemmas right now. One stemmed from Sam's discussion, and then one is from my question right now. And I would like you to address one of the two, and I will move to Chris to address one. Specifically for Maurene, I would like you to address the issue that came up from Sam's discussion. When it comes, his discussion was that when it comes to contributing to climate challenges, Uganda and Africa contributes very small compared to other countries, and yet we suffer the consequences the most. My question to you is, how do we address such issues? How should that be handled?
Thank you so much, Madam Fasi. I think to handle this, we should come up with dialogues. We should come out with awareness, like we should go in the village. Okay, we should go in the country. Let us talk about it. Let us do campaigns of climate change via the internet, even via oral, like, for example, we are here in Fort Patrol, then we say let us campaign for awareness for the climate change. I think that one can also help, because if you talk about something too much, I think the government can come out. For example, like what is going on by the Go Green, they have come up with the debates of the climate. Government will do the needful. Morning, people are talking about the climate day and night. I think they will come up with it. And another thing, I would emphasize that, or encourage people to at least plant more trees. Like, for example, you cut one tree, you also plant two. And another thing, I would encourage at least everyone to love the environment that they are in by not this like throwing everywhere, like it was like for water, like you after drinking, then you just dump the bottle wherever you have found. At least let love is by protecting trees, by at least avoiding to dump polythene bag anyhow, and this will help us to fight for the climate change. And another thing, I maybe suggest that we should at least get leaders who will stand in for this climate change. We may not wait for the government, for the ministers, but at least as we young leaders, we can say, I will stand for the climate change. Let our climate be there for me, and everyone be seeing you as a good example. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Maureen. And before you go, I would like to still get back to you again. Yes, you have made suggestions, and for us to, as a county, to deal with issues of climate change and to handle things that infringe on the climate when it arises from our country. But specifically, the issue that was raised by some is on other countries outside Africa producing a more danger to the climate, a more danger to the environment than Uganda. How do we handle such issues? And that is the discussion I would like you to have. How do we handle issues of other countries being a danger to the climate at an international level, while we as a country, we are emitting very, very little danger to the climate?
I beg your pardon, madam.
I don't know if someone else, would you like to address that issue since it was raised by you? The issue of other countries being a greater danger to environment than Uganda. How do we as a country address that at an international level? So let me throw it back to
let me submit on it. Some will add on later, maybe.
Okay,
I think this is happening just because these people in their countries, they have very many industries, and of which these industries use like they overuse it, and them overusing it, it becomes more dangerous to what, to their country and to our, yeah, and they no, some take over.
Okay, I guess Maureen is throwing that back to Sam. So Sam, you started that discussion. Would you like to finish it?
Okay, what I was trying to say, what other international countries are trying to do, you find that they've established sumptuary taxes to industries that cause these carbon emissions. You get that point? But now, in the recent research I made, you realize that USA spent over $250 million in trying to compensate for the damages caused by these industries. You get that point? And the research was that USA had collected about $150 million as sumptuary taxes. But however, in trying to compensate the effects of these carbon emissions and the damages caused by these industries, rose to a tune of about $250 million. So what I would suggest would be that we also need to strengthen the international law. We see how best, let me say, countries that subscribe to the UN or to the European Union, we see how best they can come up with policy formations, come up with recommendations on how some of these issues of climate change can be addressed. It goes back to adopting legal frameworks so that we can fight now for now this issue of climate justice. I think it goes back to policy formation and coming up and strengthening our international relations through the international law, the international environmental law. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think that has been answered. Let me now move to the second dilemma, and I would like to bring Chris into that discussion. So Chris, the second dilemma is on issues of government giving out our wetlands, our forests for development purposes. So how do we as citizens hold government accountable in such a scenario and say, you know what, we need to protect the environment? How do we do that when if we have to deal with our own government?
At least the government have rules that at least can govern that are governing the environment. We have almost the environmental monitoring. The almost is being governed by you find that what I can put in place that it's better for the government to monitor the environment to achieve its productivity. We have also the environmental standards. Let the government know that at least the environment must be on the standard. Let it be know that the environment must be placed in a good plan. Let its plan be motivated. We have, for example, the National Movement Action Plan for Uganda 1995 recognizes the need to establish environmental standards. Here I mean the government must put the standards, so that the climate of it is being improved. The Constitution almost itself governs the standards of proof to the environment. We have also the environmental assessment. Let the government come up with the assessment of the environment. Let the government come up with the right to use the natural resources in the government. Let them put the right to restrict the use of land. Let put the natural resources be grouped in order to earn more resources. For example, here I'm saying I'm give out for example, the climate justice. It is linked with human rights and the development to achieve human-centered approach. Here we should approach the environment. It can be on another side. I can bring the issue of the government to favor both the rich and the poor. The issue of the government. Let the government put laws that at least are governing the rich and the poor. Yeah, I mean, I find that the climate justice begins with the recognition key groups, the women, let them be the younger generation, let them observe the importance of the activity of the values of the government, or I mean of the environment that is being climate justice. Some protect and empower vulnerable individuals and communities. Low-income workers should not suffer from climate changes. Let the government analyze the condition why the rich and the poor being motivated in Uganda. Let the government require community participation. Let the community participate in the environmental development. Let protect future generations. The greatest impact of the climate justice will come in the future. The younger generation should have the opportunity to hire everything in the environment. We have the, for example, I'm bringing you find that the government is polluting. The government is polluting. You find that they are setting up the industry, and the industry are producing fumes. They are just bringing out the polluters pay principle, imply that the polluter should bear the measures or paying down to the industries in a community. Let them put the solution to the poor people in that community. Let them take the duty of care. Let them observe the duty of care that the individuals, the students suffer from, the fuel that is coming out from the industries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. Moving back to now, my last question to you is, how in all this we are talking about climate change, what role can the youth play in promoting climate justice? Yes, so Nawume, what role can the youth play to promote climate justice? So Nawume, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like to enlighten to the youth that if we don't protect the environment, if we don't advocate for climate protection, the negative impacts of climate change will be upon our generation. So I would urge the youth to join and form climate change initiatives like that will talk about or will sensitize people all over the world or all over the country about the dangers of misusing some resources like encroaching on swamps, because in the most recent cases, many rich people are encroaching on them to build their like industries, forgetting that those very industries will produce fumes, the carbon fumes that will deteriorate our climate. So I would urge the youth to join such groups that will enable the world or our nation to enlighten to different groups of people about the dangers of encroaching on swamps. Then I would encourage the youth to join tree planting associations or groups, because that is like a form of environmental compensation. If one to replace the very trees that he or she has cut down, because as I said at my beginning, that the impacts will be felt by us. Then I would request that the youth, after being aware, as we are now already aware, we opt for other alternatives that will enable our daily chores to move on. For instance, like those who use trees for firewood, I would encourage them to use like some other methods of cooking, like use gas or using like paraffin, that may even make our cooking more easy. Then my last submission would be like the youth should engage themselves in mass sensitizations of all citizens, and us being the strongest of all the groups of people, we should act, form laws, and implement them, so that we shouldn't climb upon bumps, but let's also respect the laws that are made. Let's let's follow what we say or what we wish to be done. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks so much, Nawume. We have come to the end of our debate for today, despite the challenges when it comes to network. We are hoping that one youth or a group of youth can come up and develop some sort of technology to be able to resolve these network challenges. So thank you so much. I'll give each panelist an opportunity to give closing remarks. I will start right from Sam. So Sam, you have the floor to give us your closing remark.
Thank you so much, Madam Fancy. Like as I earlier on said, that we face an uncertain future impacted by a changing climate and pandemic, but we all have a unique opportunity to get it right if we act now. Like as earlier on said, that Uganda has the youngest population in Africa. It means now the young people, the youth have a pivotal role to play in as far as climate change justice is concerned. And however, I would also say that rights can be better exercised when people have access to information, when these people can participate in the decisions that affect their surroundings, decisions that affect their country. And more so also, I'll recommend that we also look at fighting corruption, because you find that in most acts of environmental degradation are being covered by corruption. People encroach on these forests, people encroach on these lakes and rivers, but you find that now the implementers or the law enforcement officers try to take these bribes and cover up some of these issues that are affecting our environment. And also I would recommend environmental civic education, because I believe that environmental civic education is also a missing gap in regard to environmental conservation. I would also encourage local councils not to come up with bylaws. Yes, at the national level, implementation and policy making may be hard, but then at the local council levels, I think it is very easy. For example, when the Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi was the chairman LOC5 for Gulu, he was against this charcoal burning and there was a lot of sanity in Gulu. I remember the late Kasirye Gwanga, he was against deforestation and the cutting of timber. And he had created some sanity in Muvende, in Mitiana rather, during those days when he was still alive. So I believe it goes back now to the grassroots. And I believe it is everyone's role. We all have a role to play, whether we are policymakers, regardless of being business leaders, investors. As a community, we have a role to play, because I believe there's no alternative. There's no alternative when it comes to issues of on addressing issues of climate justice. We must make this link. We can do it, and we must all get on. And more so, I would recommend global cooperation. Like as earlier on said, we share the same skies. Whatever affects Uganda, whatever affects Kenya, affects Tanzania, affects Southern Sudan, because we share the same skies, and we can try to do away with the carbon emissions with what as a country, but then our neighbors, the effects of what they are doing can also affect our country. So we need to foster global cooperation and also create sensitization. Like we see how best we can go to schools, we go to communities through the music, dance, and drama. We also see how best we can come up with new policies that will help us in combating climate injustices. Otherwise, I believe the young people have a role to play, because we are the next generation, and the generation is today. And if we want to change our destiny, I believe we also need to be united for a noble cause, because it's in the unity of our cause that our future rests. And I believe it is in the midst of our decisions that our destiny is shaped. So I would not personally encourage boardroom talk. I'm against boardroom talk, like coming up with negotiations and what. We need to get back to the grassroots. It starts with you and I can possibly create a very, very big difference. Otherwise, thank you so much. I'm so much humbled. I wish you happy deliberations.
Thank you so much, Sam. Let me move to Chris. Chris, it's time for you to give us your closing remarks.
Yes, thank you, the moderator. Wow, I was so very happy to see this topic. This topic is so impressive, so educative. And we must learn its positive outcomes. So thank you very much, moderator. Anyway, as I saw the issue of digital rights, I was so impressed. I'm advising the youth that at least let us learn to know that digital rights are there. Let's put them into our consideration. Let's empower our rights. Let's make sure that at least we are being motivated. Because this topic, by the time I saw it, I said that at least this is a good topic that is going to build us with the youth if we put it into our consideration. And I'm seriously advocating for this, that at least they should put out initiatives that promotes digital rights, speaks out about resisting dignities. Also, I'm putting, in other words, I'm accessing also the youth to enjoy the clean environment, to enjoy the smoothness of the environment, because the women, they have the natural, they utilize it out with a good thing. So I'm advocating our consideration. Let us learn that at least also the emerging technology are there to educate us and to learn more from them. Because that some of us, we are being employed because of this imagining employed. Most of the youth are being employed because of this imagining technology. So I'm so humbled in front of you, madam. Thank you for that topic. I salute you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that. Let me also get closing remarks from Nawume. Nawume, you have the floor.
Let everyone acknowledge that it is our climate that we are caring for. It is our environment, and that we are helping, and which helps us the more. So let it be everyone's obligation to engage in activities which favor climate or our natural resources. And let's also engage ourselves in the different emerging technologies, because the world ahead us needs us to work hard, needs us to be having a hard platform with money. So if we encourage them, there is a possibility that they will help us in forms of innovations and other ideas that will be gotten from there. That's all I could say.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, let's get closing remarks from Maurene.
Thank you so much, Madam, and other panelists. I'll conclude by saying that as youths, let us know our limits in using the digital rights, because having right does not mean that you should violate other things. We should know our limits. We should know where we stop, where we have right. And in climate justice, I will call upon all the youth in the whole world to come and at least stand in for their climate. Because when the climate is affected, everyone is affected. And you cannot say, let us wait for the government to talk about it. No, let us be the champions of the climate so that we can overcome all the challenges that we are facing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maureen. I would like to appreciate all the debaters for today from Uganda Pentecostal University. Today we had 4 panelists who represented Uganda Pentecostal University. That is Katushabe Nawume, Kasoke Chris, Mikayi Maurene, and Baluku Sam. I would like to appreciate you people so much for the wonderful debate that you have had and for unpacking this very wonderful topic, and that is digital rights, emerging technologies, and climate justice. What is the role of the youth? And once again, I congratulate you for making it to the quarterfinals. I know that it hasn't been easy. So As we all know, in the beginning, universities were grouped into 6 groups, each group having 4 universities. We held the internal debates, and then the universities had inter-university debate in each group. So out of the groups, 2 universities, each group qualified for the quarterfinals. And now we are holding internal debates to prepare for the quarterfinals. And I'm happy that Uganda Pentecostal University debated today in their internal debates to prepare for the quarterfinals. And next week, same time, we'll be having another university as well that qualified for the quarterfinals, hold their internal debates. Thank you so much, Center for Constitutional Governance, for organizing this debate, this kind of engagement. It's very, very important, and it helps a lot to the youth and the students at the university. So thank you, Center for Constitutional Governance, and thank you so much, CCG, and Civic Space TV as well for organizing this debate. Thank you so much, the viewers, for watching. You can always put your comment in the comment section. You can put your views out there about the topic in the comment section on Twitter, and tag CCG and Civic Space TV as well. So we have come to the end, and I would like to say bye. See you again next week, same time.